at talking out their feelings. Men are not very good at putting out their emotions out. And as well, then it becomes very difficult for them to be able to communicate with you, because some people will start communicating between the two of them. Then they start accusing each other. It's not me. I've got a child outside, so it's you. And possibly the child who is outside is not even theirs. So we need to be careful that where we think we are unable to communicate, the two of us, the first point of call is medicine. Because at least medicine, they can do the test and whatever, and they will tell you where things are, whether normal or abnormal. Though obviously denial is something which is actually in many of these bad situations, people will deny that I know medicine has said that it's not me. So you need to be careful, but start with the medical biology to be checked out. Then I think that will be helpful.
Great. No, thank you so much for that. I think that's very helpful to help to navigate that kind of situation. Today is World Mental Health Day, so I find it quite appropriate to also ask you from my own side, how did you manage? I think mental health is everything, and when you are going through something over basically so many years, it takes its toll on you, triggering things like depression, anxiety, so many things. So I just wondered, I know we do have our friendships and church helping us to navigate these things, but did you end up seeking any professional mental health guidance as well as you were experiencing this, like a psychologist or counselor?
What I could say is, possibly for me, the backdrop was we were in Zimbabwe for most of our time. And, depression is not something which people would actually, you would say to people, maybe I'm depressed. You would know in yourself, you are low every day because of all this which is happening. And you would know, as a nurse, you would know, yes, it's depression, because you become stagnant. And when I say you become stagnant, is nothing, you can't do what you used to enjoy doing. You can't do things, because I think you need to realize that when you expect to have children in the house, you start setting standards. You start having a sort of, I need my household to be this certain level. I need, when the children come, I need them to be able to maybe C, A, B, C, D. This is what, then over the years, nothing comes. And then it's like just the world crashes. And you just leave everything, because there's no point in you having any of those plans or all those norms and values you were thinking, this is what I need to instill in the children. This is what I would want my children to be. I would love my children to be able to read a lot. You are sort of like projecting what you would want the ideal of your children to be. Well, for me, I would love my children to be able to speak Chewa fluently, and obviously then they can speak their father's language fluently. Then we can teach them English afterwards. All those things, those are just dreams. And if dreams don't come to fruition, depression will set in. And the African context is such that, that sort of surrounding the communities, the voices in your heart, in your face, the voices everywhere will actually make you break down. There's no doubt about that. And possibly, if I were still in Zimbabwe now, possibly we would have divorced. That I could tell you. We could have divorced. Whether I was going to come to know Christ later on, it would have been another chapter of the story. But the story is, in the Zimbabwean context, it actually gives you a lot of mental hardship, sorrow, sadness. And I called it barrenness. It is a place of desolation. It's a place of loneliness. There's no one you are going to be able to call into that desert place where you are. You are in the wilderness. That's why the only battle you are having is in your mind. You are battling with the words which come to you, and you know, when words keep coming to you, they become part of you before you know it. That's all you dream about. So, on a mental health point of view, it's actually the highest cause of mental health in women, in possibly in Zimbabwe. It's just that maybe it's very difficult for us to actually talk about statistics. We don't report it. Nobody's investigating it. Nobody's researched it. So because of all those things, you know, that's why possibly it's not something which we talk about.
Right, my response to that is maybe straight away I did not seek any professional help. But I've always said, as you grow older, that's when you appreciate the effects of depression, for example. That's when you understand that you sometimes get depressed. I always pick example where in 2011 I couldn't get a job, and that was one of my most difficult years, and because of her support I managed to get through. But when it comes to the question or the discussion of the issue I have here, and I've found it to have more impact on me if someone talks about children to us when I'm now much older. And the way it hits me is I've been married to nearly 30 years. And if someone comes and talks to me about why we do not have children, I always get bewildered. Because the reason why I get bewildered is that maybe this person will be aware that we've been married for 30 years. And maybe it's an innocent person, they want to find out why, I will respond. But I always find that bewildering, and it tends to have an impact on me as much as possible. So, whether years gone by, I could have gone and sought for professional help. I wasn't even sure that I understood what depression was all about when we were back home. It's much clearer now. Maybe it's because of years of experience. But the impact, you always feel it when people come and discuss with you. And it's more pronounced to me when people come and talk about it now, when the two of us have been together for all these years. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, nowadays we can talk about mental health quite a bit, so thank you so much. I hope everyone in the room also knows, you know, help is available, whether it's anonymous or finding someone to talk to. Really, you don't have to struggle through anything on your own. I want to hand over to Anna. Anna had a question, and then I also have two other questions after that. Anna, over to you.
Thank you so much for this discussion and for the opportunity you've given us, Mr. and Mrs. Sibanda. I've known us for over 30 years. I knew them since they got married. But look, this is you've taken a step further, and you have not helped yourselves only, but you've also helped others. Others are just dying or crying in silence. And for your own information, because I'm in charge of the SADC region, this is not for Zimbabwe only, it's for everyone. It's an issue where people really struggle to open up. And in most cases in the African culture, you find men, then they start looking for other wives or whatever the case may be. But I really want to applaud you, because this topic does not only speak to people who are not having children, but it also speaks to people who are dumping children. Because if you think now, say, I want to dump this child, and somebody's crying for a child, then you have a second thought to say, why am I doing this? That's number one. Number two, it also speaks to people who abuse children, to say it's a blessing from God. You don't have to abuse a child because it's a blessing. And for you, Mr. and Mrs. Banda, don't even blame yourself. you are just one of those people. And what you've done, you've not done it yourself only, but you've done it to the world. And I pray to the Almighty that He gives you the strength and to help others, because this is a journey you've started. It's very rare for Black people to talk. We are young guys to talk about this openly, like you've done, because it's a fact that we know from either your side is obvious. Your parents will say, okay, this man married. Why is our child failing? They will never say the guy. Same as you, Mr. Banda, to say your parents also say, why are you stuck with the woman when you find she cannot give you children? But what we have done, these are some of the what can I say? When we talk about love conquers. Love will take you anywhere. And I want to thank you so much for the courage and for looking after each other. Don't even blame yourselves for anything, because this is what it has been. And just go through the journey, and please help as many people as you can. Like I said, those who cannot have children, those who are dumping children, those who are struggling in their marriages in terms of not having kids. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Auntie Anna, for that. So I'm just going to read out this question that I've received. It starts off with, I feel so privileged to be in this room today with this inspiring couple. And I would say the author knows my own parenting trauma created by enforced adoption. Acceptance of the circumstances seems to be fundamental to what kept you both functioning and has brought you this far, individually and as a couple. What would you say to people who are at different stages in acceptance and considering exploring safe and effective solutions? You mentioned such as medical and undisputed adoption. It is also helpful to hear from others in the room.
Okay, I
So
think
what would you say to people who are at different stages in acceptance and considering exploring safe and effective solutions? Yeah, that's the gist of it.
yeah, I think in terms of safe solutions, these days there are so many solutions, but we also need to look at the financial implications of the solutions. If we talk about surrogacy, you have to be able to pay for somebody to get pregnant, the welfare of that person whilst they are pregnant, and all the doctor bills and everything else, and the checkups and everything. Until the baby comes, then you still have to pay them. So that's quite a lot of money. It's exactly the same as you would want to have IVF. I remember as a midwife at the Avenues Clinic, we used to do IVF, and it was a lot of money. A nurse working there wouldn't even afford it. So that's something. And when you come into the UK, the NHS, yes, you can have IVF, but it's got some parameters which are set by NICE guidance, what you can do, how old you should be, what BMI should be. So all those parameters become a hindrance instead of being a help to you. Where it is called it's free, it's not free, because all those parameters are actually going to bar you into coming into there. So acceptance is one thing which possibly, for me to be able to put pen to paper and write this, it means my journey has come to the realization of acceptance. And the only thing which I can say helped me is being born again, becoming a believer, a follower of Christ. That's when my situation changed. This is where my stagnation stopped. And I then started to realize that I was still there. My dad always used to call us princesses because we are royal, and obviously you would think maybe, my dad is just saying that because he's my dad, and you start seeing yourself as what you are a princess. And then you start, this is how I came to start writing again, because I had stopped doing all those. If it weren't that I came to a place of acceptance and said, this is where I am and I am loved the way I am, It doesn't matter what the numerous multi voices will be saying around me, and I'm going to go forward. And so going forward and putting the story out is actually in the aim of helping those who are struggling, that they need to be looking for a faith. You know, it doesn't, I'm not sure which faith you would want to have, which you believe in, which is going to be helpful, because you can believe in so many things and then those so many things won't help. Because the thing is, if you don't have something to hold on to, there are days where possibly I could have committed suicide. It was very easy for you to be, you know, to do that, or for me to do that actually, because there was nothing, you know, you are just sort of working and looking after everybody else, and what's there for you to show that you've been working very hard. So, you know, when we were talking about mental health, suicidal thoughts are something which is maybe your daily bread. So for you to be able to get to a place where you are able to say, yeah, I think now I am able to move. For me, it's only Jesus Christ, and I speak for myself, that it's only Jesus Christ who brought me to a place of acceptance, of being where I am and being able to talk about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to sit with you guys here and answer those questions. I would be sobbing, because that was my daily, you know, everything was sobbing. You sob yourself to sleep. You only work in a robotic manner because that's what you are doing. That's what you are supposed to be strong. So because you are supposed to be strong, you know, African women are supposed to be strong. You're supposed to manage everything else, and everything else doesn't matter. So you go into a robotic mood. You can go to work and come back and you can cry yourself to sleep. Whether you're going to sleep at 3 a.m., it doesn't matter. You wake up, you go to work, you work, and that's all what will be happening. But life, you won't be able to be living. So I maybe invite people to be able to look for whatever faith they want to hold on, and a faith which is living, which doesn't lie to you. I think that's what I can say, which is most important, which doesn't, true faith, which will give you peace, which you will never understand where it came from. Because the other thing is, I was very angry. I was always angry. I'm sure people who might have encountered me knew I was really angry. And that anger is a form of depression, because you are angry. You can't express how you are feeling, and you can only do that through anger. So peace comes from knowing the truth, and for me, my truth is Jesus Christ, and he gave me the peace to be able to carry on.
As a contribution to the question raised, I'll try to create a scenario whereby maybe a couple, one of them would suggest that maybe it's now high time that we adopt. And this could result in people not eventually agreeing on that particular process of eventually having a child. And I think for such particular instances, you may need to have a support structure, like what S is referring to here. If you've got your faith, you always have a support structure from your church. And if you've got a very powerful family structure, they will come in and also support you. Then you can have a discussion whereby eventually you agree towards an adoption. It will be very difficult for you to eventually force someone to agree to have an adoption. Then you bring a child into such an environment, and that child could eventually suffer from the tension between the two of you. So I think it's important for people to eventually agree whether they could do an adoption or not. And in any way, it mustn't be imposed by any other group of people or a third party. It should eventually be agreed between the two of you and being supported as much as possible. And I think even the two of you in that relationship, go through a reflection. If someone suggests to you that, why don't you adopt? Instead of you just giving an answer straight away, think about it, reflect about it, stand in that person's shoes, and eventually say what you want to say. Eventually, after you've thought about it, don't just have an impulsive reaction, because at the end of the day, that idea will eventually die off and you'll still be back to square one as much as possible. So no third party coming in to say, you guys adopt. I don't think it's a good idea. The two of you should talk about it. Someone will suggest it and eventually come to some form of agreement on that particular process after you've gone through a reflective process. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, and thank you to Ruby for that question. Thank you so much. I saw a hand from Rutendo. I'd like to give you the opportunity to ask your question.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good
I'm not going
afternoon.
to ask a question. I'm just going to make a comment. I am
Watete.
Max van der Star aunt, his father's sister. It's a difficult moment. I'm listening, and also I read the book. And I'm sorry we were absent. But having said that, the two of you have been a model of our family, whether we are going through this situation, which you handled for so beautiful. We knew as adults what you were going through. And the good part was Max never came to us to say, to talk about AC behind her back. So usually nobody also could go to Max and say anything negative. We know some people maybe have said nasty words to AC. Yes, we acknowledge that. But as I'm here, I will say we are sorry. But I'm very proud of what you have done. And I just wish God will give you that strength to stand up tall and go into Zimbabwe and educate other girls, especially young girls, who are going to be in that situation. Educate them to stand up for themselves and to know who they are and to be proud of what they have become or what they will become. Well, I can say no more, and I'm just proud of you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Tete. Thank you so much for those kind words.
Thank you, Watete. Miss you.
Thank you so much.
We miss you too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give Bayo, I hope I'm saying that correctly, an opportunity to speak. And then we're going to start winding down. We understand that it's a Sunday, and we really appreciate everyone for your time. I'll hand over to you, Bayo, for your comment or question.
Hello, everybody. So let me just, if you just give me 1 minute to pause that of my wife, because she's here today.
No problem. In the meantime, I'll read maybe the comment that he had put in the chat box. A big congratulations, Sister Essie, for the launching of this great virtual book. We thank the Lord for helping you to birth the vision He has given to you. May your life and that of Brother Maxwell continue to inspire many others in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
You can continue, Bayo.
Oh, sorry, it's just because we're both and we're our posts are on. And what I just wanted to say is that because I work in mental health, I'm actually, although I look after the older people, mental health of older people, and as part of my training, I did a lot of training in mental health. What I just want to say is that for somebody to come to this level of Sister Hesse, we really, really, really have to thank God. I think the best position we can find ourselves is being able to talk about our experience. And I think it's the highest calling, even in human psychology, for us to be able to now talk about our pain and how we got to where we are is inspirational. I know Sister C did mention that it was done by the help of the Holy Spirit. Yes, because I'm also a Christian. Being a Christian also helped me to be able to marry mental health, even with the spiritual side of things. And to come to this level, you really, really must have really gone to that level where you've actually mastered what has happened to you. And you now bring something good out of it. It's difficult if you haven't got to that level to even talk about it. And I like the way she started to put it, that to even come to this level, she will be crying. She will more or less, she won't be able to talk about it without crying and all these things. For her to get to that level, it shows that God has really, really worked in her. And that I'm just wondering, the question I need to ask her is that apart from although you made it very clear that your faith have stand out for you, is there any tips you can give other people? Because so many Christians haven't got to your level at all. In fact, so many Christians that have been Christian for a long time are never able to even get to this level. Is there any tips you want to give people in terms of how you are able to do it? Because your experience, I can call you an expert based on your experience. Your experience has made you an expert in the field, even more than those of us that spent 20-something years working in mental health. So what's the tip you want to give to people? I know the faith stands out, but not all Christians have got to this level. What has helped you as a person? Just my reflection. Thank you.
Maybe I could start the response and say there should be an understanding between the two of you as a couple. You really need to understand the viewpoint of your spouse as much as you can. Let me try to give an example. As a man, you want to ensure that you understand what she's going through the best way you can when you initiate that discussion. Don't let your ego coming in here and try to dictate or determine how the discussion would go. I think that would be the first tip I would give. Now it depends on the family structure, the support you have with your immediate families plus the extended families. As much as possible, we want to find a way in which we can manage whatever viewpoints and suggestions are coming in. And whatever viewpoints and suggestions are coming in, they mustn't be initiated by you going behind your spouse and creating problems. If they are coming from a third party, try to find ways of managing them as much as possible. In fact, it definitely has to be a team effort here, as much as you can. You may not understand it at the same level, but if you are supporting, even though one particular member of that couple is quite a way ahead, it helps as much as possible. Then, having taken it further and having created that platform of understanding each other, then you can start throwing in suggestions of how you can manage the effects of this. And usually it helps when you discuss it. But if you don't have the platform on the foundation to have that discussion, it won't work out. Then you end up having other people coming in, and it can eventually become a muddle and then affect your relationship, the two of you. I think that those are the two tips I would quickly really try to explain as a response to your question, Brother Bayo.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I think what I can just add to that is that the two of you walk in the same journey, but the emotional reaction is different with individuals. I think just bear that in mind. And whilst for me, I suppose because I enjoy writing, journaling is actually something which I've forever been doing. You know, despite being writing or whatever, I've always journaled. If I can discuss things with somebody, I would just put them on paper because at times it helps me to let out the emotions. I put it on paper. I can read it another day and possibly it doesn't make sense or what. But the fact is, I've managed to get it out of my system. And the other thing which I actually learned is in that journey, also in the journey of marriage, because people would actually come to tell you what they think about you, you know. And I learned in very early in our marriage that it's pointless for me to actually take that story to Max and say that, because it really doesn't help, because obviously those early years you still trying to learn the other one, you know, and you don't know, and you actually get a disagreement. So I ended up being able to stand for myself and try and solve all those. If I can't, then I write my things down. I actually think when I became born again, it helped the fact that I could actually journal. And because for somebody who was new in the faith, it was helping me to actually, if I jot things down, now I can actually search the scriptures to find what best can help me from the scriptures, from what I've written down for myself. But in the early or in the years where I was a non-believer, I still found journaling quite therapeutic. I don't know why, but that's how I had found. And I would actually encourage everybody who is, because at times it's very, very difficult to try and articulate how I'm feeling to somebody else. But yet, if I sit with a pen and paper, I'm able just to, I can write for hours, and before you know it, okay, you've poured out all your emotions on paper, and that's actually very helpful. That's what I can close by saying.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that question and the response. And I'll take the last hand before we wind down. A reminder that if you or any other participants want to join us, we are also having another session this evening at 10 p.m. UK time. So you're welcome to join that session as well, or share